All right, ready to dive in. Today, we're taking a deep dive into Hindustan Unilever, HUL for short. It's one of India's biggest players in the fast-moving consumer goods market. And you've given us a ton of material on them. Their annual report, their financials, even their sustainability reports. You really went all out.
It seems like you want to get a really complete picture of the company, and I think we can definitely do that.
Yeah, I think so too. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, can you just give us a quick overview of the Indian FMCG market? Like, what's the overall landscape?
Well, imagine this. 9 out of 10 Indian households use HUL products.
Wow, that's a huge reach.
It is. It's a massive market, super vibrant, although there have been, some slowdowns recently, especially in rural areas.
Makes sense.
But urban markets, they're absolutely booming. And there's this growing demand for what we call premium products. People are willing to spend a bit more for higher quality.
So it's like a tale of two markets almost.
Kind of, yeah.
And HUL seems to be at the top of it all.
They are.
So this premiumization trend, what's driving that, do you think?
I think it's a combination of things. You have a rising middle class. There's more awareness of global trends. And people just want a better lifestyle, And HUL has really capitalized on that. They've been strategically pushing certain brands, like take Vim Liquid, for example.
Yeah, Vim.
They've revamped the formula,
Yeah.
given it more like aspirational packaging. And they've seen some pretty significant market share growth because of it.
So it's not just about like slapping a premium label on something.
Right.
It's about a genuine upgrade.
Exactly. And it's not just Vim. Think about Surf Excel Liquid. They've launched a new formula specifically targeting tough stains. It's all about offering more benefits and giving the consumer a sense of, higher value.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, we get it. You have higher expectations now.
Exactly.
All right, so let's move on to HUL's business model. It's more than just soap and shampoo.
Right.
What are the different segments that they operate in?
HUL's all about diversification. They have 4 main segments: home care, beauty and personal care, foods and refreshment, and then kind of a catch-all others category. It's like a balanced portfolio,
It's smart, spreads the risk.
Exactly. It caters to a wider range of consumer needs.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do they actually get their products into the hands of millions and millions of people? I mean, the logistics of that must be crazy.
Well, their supply chain is actually one of their biggest strengths.
Really?
Yeah, it's a well-oiled machine. They have 28 factories that they own. Plus, they partner with over 50 other manufacturers all across India. It's a massive network, and it lets them reach even the most remote corners of the country.
Wow, that's impressive. But managing a network that big, that has to be incredibly complex.
It is. But they've come up with some innovative solutions. They've started using what they call nanofactories.
Nanofactories, what are those?
They're basically like mini production lines within their larger facilities.
Oh, interesting.
So it gives them a lot more agility. They can experiment with smaller batches, and they can get new products to market much faster.
It's like a rapid response team for product development.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about their financials. You've got all the key statements here. Profit and loss statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement. What's the story these numbers are telling us?
Well, the profit and loss statement, or P&L, tells us the bottom line, right? How much are they making? How much are they spending? And the good news is HUL is a profitable company. Very profitable.
Good. That's always a good sign.
But then we have to look at the balance sheet, which is like a snapshot of their overall financial health.
It's like a checkup, right?
Exactly. It tells us about their assets, what they own, and their liabilities, what they owe. And from what we see there, they seem to be in good shape.
Healthy and fit, financially speaking.
Right. But to really understand how well they're managing their money, we have to look at the cash flow statement. This tracks the movement of cash in and out of the company. Are they generating enough to cover operations, pay dividends, invest in growth? And based on that, they seem to be managing their cash effectively.
Okay, good. So it's all looking pretty positive so far.
It is, and here's where it gets interesting. They use a metric called EVA, economic value added, to really measure how much value they're creating for their shareholders.
EVA. That sounds a bit technical.
It is a bit, but think of it this way. Imagine you're running a lemonade stand. You invest some money. EVA is figuring out if you're making enough from selling that lemonade to not only cover your costs, but have some extra left over. A positive EVA means you're generating returns that exceed the initial investment.
So basically for HUL, a positive EVA means they're making lemonade stand-worthy profits for their investors. I like that analogy. Okay, now let's talk about the people behind this whole operation. Who
Yeah.
are the masterminds? Who are HUL's promoters? And who's calling the shots in the management team?
Well, the main promoter is Unilever.
Okay, the global giant.
Right, the global giant. They hold a majority stake in HUL. And leading the management team, we have Mr. Rohit Jawa, the new CEO.
New CEO, Mr. Rohit Jawa, what's his background?
He's a veteran, really experienced. He's held leadership positions within Unilever and other markets, so he brings a wealth of global experience to HUL.
A global perspective. That's interesting. So it sounds like a steady hand at the wheel. But even the most successful companies have their challenges, right?
Hmm.
What are some of the headwinds that HUL is facing? What are they worried about?
Well, climate change is a big one.
Yeah, of course.
It has the potential to disrupt their supply chain, impact water availability, and even affect consumer preferences. Then there's always the risk of economic slowdowns.
Right, that could really hurt consumer spending.
Exactly. And then there's the competition.
Oh yeah, the FMCG space is super competitive.
It is. There are both domestic and international players all fighting for market share. But HUL is constantly innovating, they're launching new products, tweaking existing ones, and they're really focusing on expanding their digital footprint. Because, that's where retail is headed.
It's like they're playing chess,
Kinda, yeah.
always trying to stay one step ahead.
Mhm.
All right, so before we get too far into that, let's zoom out for a second. What about their long-term vision? How do they plan to use their resources to fuel future growth?
Well, their strategy is multifaceted.
Okay.
They want to tap into the huge potential of rural markets. They still have a lot of room to grow there.
Yeah.
They're also thinking about international expansion.
Oh, going global.
Yeah. Leverage their expertise, their brand recognition, and of course, they're constantly investing in innovation, both in terms of product development and finding more sustainable ways to operate.
So it's about expanding their reach, staying ahead of the curve, and doing it all in a way that aligns with their values.
Interesting. But what does the market think of all this? What's their valuation looking like?
Based on what we see, the market seems to view HUL pretty favorably. Their financial performance, the dividends they pay, and their ambitious growth plans, it all contributes to a positive investor sentiment.
So a solid bet in the eyes of the market.
Seems that way.
All right. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on something that often gets overlooked. Related party transactions. What are they and why should we care about them?
Well, they're basically dealings between a company and entities that have a close relationship with it.
Okay, like subsidiaries or...
Yeah, subsidiaries, promoters, key management folks.
Okay.
And it's important to look at these transactions to make sure everything is above board.
Why is that? What are the potential red flags?
Well, imagine a company selling assets to a related party at a really low price, or buying something at an inflated price. Ah, I see. It could be a way to unfairly benefit those close to the company.
Exactly. So we need to make sure everything is fair and transparent.
So what does HUL do to manage these transactions?
Well, they have a well-defined policy for RPTs. Any major transaction has to be approved by their audit committee. And there's a system in place for reviewing and monitoring these dealings. It's all about good governance, safeguarding the interests of everyone involved.
Sounds like they're trying to avoid any conflicts of interest.
Exactly.
We've covered a lot of ground already, from market trends to business models, financials, to even sustainability. We're starting to get a real feel for HUL as a company.
I think so too. We've talked about, HUL's overall profitability, but there are some other key ratios that can give us even more insight into their financial performance.
Oh, you mean the kind of numbers that make investors excited?
Exactly. Things like return on net worth, or RNW, and return on capital employed, or ROCE. These help us understand how efficiently HUL is using its resources to generate profit.
Okay, break those down for me. What exactly does RNW tell us?
Well, imagine you invest in HUL. RNW shows how well they're using your money to make more money. A higher RNW means they're really good at turning equity into profit.
So it's a measure of how efficiently they're using their equity.
Right.
And ROCE, how's that different?
ROCE is a little broader. It considers all the capital they use, not just equity, but also debt. So a higher ROCE generally means they're making smart investments, using their resources wisely.
Got it. So ROW and ROCE, those are our profitability stars.
You got it.
How's HUL performing in those areas? Are they shining bright?
Well, to really get a sense of that, we'd want to compare their numbers to industry benchmarks and also look at their historical performance, see the trends.
It's all about context.
Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of context, let's move on to something that really caught my eye in their annual report. Their sustainability programs, they're doing a lot, from tackling climate change to empowering women in rural communities. Can you give us a quick overview of their main sustainability goals?
Sure. Their sustainability framework is built around what they call their ESG goals.
ESG.
Yeah, it stands for environmental, social, and governance. It's their way of approaching business responsibly, sustainably.
ESG goals, that sounds pretty comprehensive.
It is.
What are some of the highlights within each of those areas?
Well, on the environmental side, a big focus is their net zero emissions goal by 2039.
Ambitious.
Very ambitious. And they're working on reducing emissions across their entire value chain. So from sourcing raw materials to manufacturing to distribution, even considering how consumers use their products.
So it's not just about their own operations. They're thinking about the whole life cycle of their products.
Exactly.
Impressive. Okay, what about the social aspect? What are they doing to make a positive impact on society?
One great example is Project Shakti. It's all about empowering rural women to become entrepreneurs.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah. They distribute HUL products within their communities. So it's a win-win. HUL expands its reach, and these women get financial independence.
It's a great model.
It is.
Okay, so we've covered the E and the S. What about the G in ESG? Governance, what does that involve?
Governance is all about how a company is managed, overseen. For HUL, this means having a strong board of directors with diverse perspectives,
Right.
ethical business practices, transparency in their financial reporting, and making sure they're complying with all the laws and regulations.
So it's about setting high ethical standards.
Exactly.
Okay, but with all these sustainability goals, how do we know they're not just, setting targets and then forgetting about them? Are they actually measuring their progress?
That's a great question. Measuring impact is key. And HUL uses a variety of metrics to track how they're doing against their ESG goals. They even publish a sustainability report to hold themselves accountable and show the world what they've accomplished.
So they're walking the walk,
Yeah,
not just talking the talk.
exactly.
What kind of metrics are they using to
Yeah.
actually track their progress?
Well, it's a mix of things. For environmental goals, they look at things like their greenhouse gas emissions, water usage, waste generation. For social goals, they'll measure things like how many people are benefiting from their community programs, the percentage of women in leadership positions, and even things like employee satisfaction scores.
So it's like a dashboard for their sustainability journey.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay, here's the big question. How does all this sustainability stuff affect their bottom line? Is it a cost center, or can it actually contribute to profits?
That's a really important question, and I think there's a growing understanding that sustainability and profitability aren't mutually exclusive.
So doing good can be good for business.
Exactly. For HUL, sustainability can lead to cost savings through reduced energy use and less waste.
That makes sense.
It can attract consumers who care about those things, and it can really boost their brand reputation, which makes them more attractive to investors.
So it's like a virtuous cycle.
You can say that. They invest in sustainability, which helps their bottom line, which lets them invest even more in sustainability. And it's not just about making money, it's about creating a better future.
That's inspiring. We've covered a lot of ground today. HUL's market position, their business strategies, their financials, and their sustainability initiatives. What stands out to you as the most remarkable aspects of HUL's journey?
What really strikes me is how they're embracing change. They're not afraid to experiment, to push boundaries, whether it's with digital transformation or premiumization or their commitment to sustainable living.
It's like they're not just riding the wave, they're creating the wave.
That's a great way to put it. They're not just reacting to trends, they're shaping them. And they're doing it in a way that benefits their business, but also the world around them.
It's a powerful example for other companies,
Yeah,
showing that you can do good and do well at the same time.
absolutely. HUL's story is one of ambition, innovation, and a real commitment to creating a better future.
We've really gone deep on HUL, haven't we? Their financials, their strategies, their commitment to sustainability, it's clear they're aiming high.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, as we wrap up here, how do you see their focus on sustainability playing out long term? Will it help them succeed in the future? Or will they struggle to balance growth with their sustainability goals?
That's the big question. I think the world is changing. Sustainability isn't just a nice to have anymore. Consumers are demanding it. Investors are looking for it. Regulators are setting stricter standards.
So it's not really optional at this point.
Right. It's becoming a necessity if businesses want to thrive in the long run. And for HUL, their sustainability work could really set them apart.
How so?
They have a good track record, ambitious goals, and they're taking concrete steps. So that puts them in a good position to appeal to consumers who really care about a company's values.
It's about more than just the products they sell.
It is. It's about having a purpose that resonates with people, making a positive impact. But of course, it won't be easy. Balancing sustainability with growth, especially in a market as complex as India, that's a challenge.
What kind of challenges do you see them facing?
Well, for one, there's the cost of implementing sustainable practices across their entire value chain. Sourcing materials, reducing emissions, managing waste, all of that requires investment.
Yeah, I can see that. But wouldn't those costs be offset by the savings they'd get from increased efficiency and less waste in the long run?
Potentially, yes. But they have to think long term and be willing to play the long game.
Right.
There's also the challenge of, making sure their sustainability initiatives are actually meaningful.
Right, not just greenwashing.
Exactly. They have to constantly evaluate their programs, measure the real impact, and be transparent about their progress.
So it's an ongoing process.
It is. And as they grow, expand into new markets, they'll have to adapt their approach. What works in one place might not work somewhere else.
It's a balancing act, but one that HUL seems prepared for.
I think so, too. They have the experience, the resources, and the commitment.
Well, we've come to the end of our deep dive into Hindustan Unilever. We've explored so much: their market position, their business model, their financials, and those impressive sustainability efforts. I feel like I've learned a lot.
It's been great unpacking all of this with you.
And to all of you listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've gained some valuable insights into HUL, a company that's not just selling products, but really trying to shape the future.
And remember, the business world is always changing. Companies like HUL are leading the way, showing us that success and positive impact can go hand in hand.
So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking questions. Until next time.